Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders' Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
The question is, where would a chicken hide on the exterior of the car?
On the other side of the street. So, you mean as you're driving along, you can hear a chicken?
Doesn't anyone screen these calls anymore?
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley, and Nancy is going to screen the calls.
Okay.
What's up, guys?
If I don't fall asleep, you're lucky I'm here, actually.
That's what she keeps telling me.
You know, guys, that intro, I've had that happen to me several times, bring my chickens to town with me. From the country to town. They get up on the axles or inside the vehicle and then stop and get out, and then you hear something and turn around and look, and one of your chickens is getting out underneath the vehicle. I've had that happen 3 or 4 different times.
That's exactly what was happening to her. She'd go to work and her chickens were all of a sudden there with her. She couldn't figure it out.
You should have seen us trying to catch that one hen. I did not want to go off and leave her because she was a really nice puller. And everybody just joined in, and here we was in a Food City parking lot catching that chicken. Luckily, we got her hemmed into a corner there of the store and got her, but the other two didn't fare out that well. I had to leave them. They head for the woods.
This is episode 150 of our live show.
I was just thinking that right before we come on. We should have done something special for 150.
Yeah, I thought about it, but maybe for 200, you know.
Yeah, definitely 200.
We are doing something special.
We're showing up?
We're here. Yeah.
I guess so. I guess that is special.
We're getting a lot of new members recently and a lot of returning members, which I really do appreciate.
Welcome back, guys. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up if you like what you are seeing and watching.
Yeah, I do appreciate all the members that joined. I appreciate the members that came back from before. But if you want to join the Breeders' Academy, the membership is open right now. You can actually register. Go to www.breedersacademy.com. Once you join, you'll have instant access to the website. You'll have access to the Founders Program, the Masters Class videos, members roundtables, all the programs and courses that support the Founders Program. We have daily articles. We even do coaching calls. So it's a really good website. One of the things I really appreciate about the coaching calls is they get on and they tell me how much they love the website and how surprised they are on how much is actually in there, more than they ever thought. Just go to www.breedersacademy.com and you can register. Also, I really appreciate all the people that have ordered from our Cafe Press. I can't tell you how many different products. Some of the people that are buying products from us, a lot of coffee cups, license plates, stickers, T-shirts, and hats. That's what I've noticed so far. But they have all kinds of stuff. It's amazing the different products they have on there. I expected the hats, I expected the T-shirts, and the coffee cups. But there's some things I saw and I just thought, okay, well, whatever, you know. But they're actually ordering them. That's cool.
You got through all of the announcements in 10 minutes.
It's a record, isn't it?
Good job. So what are we talking about today?
By the way, Peter is coming on pretty soon. We've got a few topics that we're going to cover. So I'll let you know when that is.
If you guys have got a question about problems you're having with disease or anything of the health issues or vitamins or whatever about chickens, Peter's the man.
Yeah, the address to his website, First State Veterinary Supply, he's the one I send everybody to. If you have a question I can't answer, I don't really tackle the healthcare too much because I'm a caller. But we do have a great healthcare page on the website with all kinds of information. We cover all the most common illnesses. Peter Brown shows are there. Dr. Gallardo's there. So check those out. All the information to contact Peter Brown is on the website, but you can contact him here too. Have any questions, need medications, contact Peter. Today's going to be an interesting one. It's a continuation of what we were doing last week or the week before on the 12, what did I call it?
12 key challenges in breeding and creating a strain.
Yeah, and I think last time we covered 1 through 5. This is going to be 6 through 8. And it's basically what I called it was evolution of the strain, connecting evolutionary biology to selective breeding. To me, this is a big one. It's a big challenge because it's not one that most people think about. They look at breeding, they'll look at breeding method. Maybe some of them will tackle a breeding program. Not very many, but some do. But the idea of associating selective breeding, what we do as breeders with evolutionary biology, is beyond most people. It's something they don't think about. They never contemplate it. But I'll tell you, once we start teaching them in our shows, masterclass videos, on the website, it really opens their eyes and changes the way they do everything. If you can understand evolutionary biology, you can understand why we do what we do when we're actually breeding, using breeding programs, especially the Founders Program, which is based on a lot of the evolutionary mechanisms.
Well, selective breeding is like light years from Mother Nature, what we can do with birds. And it opens your eyes up to what we can create with our own 2 hands and eyes. If you look at all the avian species that's in the world, they have one thing in common. All of them has the right type conformation and the health and the vigor needed. It goes hand in hand with selective breeding.
Yeah. You follow the mechanisms of evolution. I always say it, stay as close to Mother Nature as possible and you can't go wrong. One of the 4 mechanisms of evolution that has a lot to do with natural selection is variation, inheritance, overpopulation of offspring, and the differential survival and reproduction. So I thought we'd start by tackling those. Now, variation's interesting because without variation, you can't create a strain and you can't improve a strain. It's the key mechanisms for change. I never added outside blood. I got my Colonel Givens like 30 years ago or so. Even Tony would go, "What'd you put in them to get them like this?" I go, "I didn't do anything. I didn't put anything into them. All I did was start looking for the variations that worked in my favor. I selected towards them. Sometimes I exaggerate them, and little by little, the family took shape. I didn't have to add any blood into them. It was amazing the variations, the genetic diversity that popped up from time to time. And I just started breeding towards it. And like I said, it really set the family, fixed the family. It made the family what it is today. And that's proof to me. And that was one of the first indications that showed me that we don't need to keep adding new blood to get what we want. Everybody thinks they're only going to get what they want by adding new blood. Well, that's going to create more variation. We do want to lessen the variation as much as possible because we want to get to homozygosity. But I actually tell people, no matter how uniform you make them, there's always going to be some variation that pops up. And that's what you're going to use to change them. There's a term that says, without variation, selection is impossible. Without selection, improvement is impossible. And I took that to heart. Variation is really important. It's the mechanism of evolution, and it's the key mechanism of selective breeding.
A lot of the diversity we see in hybrid strains when we're starting out and making our own strain can be important. It's really nice to see the avenues that you can go with whichever direction that you want, just like with Kenny's birds. I think you had, Kenny, 3 or 4 different types, like the spangles, the light reds, the dark reds, different types just in that one strain of bird. Kenny picked out what he wanted that strain to become, and he bred toward that. And over time, that's what he ended up with. So now Kenny's not getting all the rest of those. Now, could one still pop up? Eventually, yes, one could, but you're not getting as much. Your foundation fowl should breed true, but there's always that chance something may pop up that you either say, well, I'm going to see where I can go with this, or I'm going to just do away with it forever. Yeah. That's the decisions you make.
Yeah, because when I first got them, you're right. They produced a dark red, light red, and the spangled. And in the spangled, I had the light red spangled and the dark red spangled. And so what I did right away was I created separate families with each. And little by little, I started fine-tuning them. The light red I did have a problem with. Like you said, sometimes you might get one pop up from time to time, which it's funny you said that because now I haven't seen the spangled in a long time. Once I realized I couldn't perfect them and I couldn't fine-tune them, I couldn't really make them into a solid family. I was always going to get variation. It wasn't something I was going to be able to fix. I said, forget the spangles. They're too difficult. They're too much problem. And all the ones you see on like my social media or on my website, those were the good ones. They weren't always that good, and everybody always wanted the good ones and not the bad ones. So there's too much variation when it came to the spangled, and I couldn't perfect them. And then the light red, I was able to keep that one going for a long time, but they did start to falter to where they weren't as light as they were. But it's funny, Frank, because this year, I must have hit the right hen with the right combination. I've got one really beautiful wheaten hen from this, which I hadn't seen in years. And I got 3 really nice light red cocks.
Wow.
So I'm going to probably reestablish what I used to call the Tecumseh line and just make that a separate family. But I did eventually get rid of the light reds. I did get rid of the spangled. I didn't see those for a long time, and I just fine-tuned the dark reds. I made them into what I feel is some of the best birds out there right now, never adding outside blood.
I've got 2 questions for you. Even if you have a lot of variation, some you like, some you don't like, I guess it's more of a statement. Don't give up. Like you tell people, don't incorporate outside blood into your family. Don't bring in new blood. But even if you have a lot of variation, even if you have variation that you don't like, you can still do something with it. It's going to take a while. It may take seasons of breeding and seasons of selection, but you can make it what you want. So try not to get frustrated with your family if it's going in a direction you don't want. But my question to you, Kenny, is with the Spangleds, was that a rarity? Because you said you gave up on them because they were just too hard to make a complete family out of them where they come uniform and consistent. Was that a rarity that happened?
Some color varieties are easier than others. And some are, I want to call them derivatives of different mixture of different breeds. Spangled gets an incomplete dominant trait. I just could not get them to where I could repeat them and then improve them as I went. There was just too many different intensities for that particular trait. Some showed it a lot, some barely showed it, some showed different varieties of it, and I just got tired of it. It just wasn't something I wanted to deal with. And if I couldn't perfect them, I didn't want to raise them. But understand that there's different sources or reasons for variation. You've got mutations, which are rare, but do occur. You have genetic recombination through meiosis and the crossover event that creates variation. And then you have other factors, which is random breeding and adding outside blood. And the idea is to tighten that family to a point where you don't see as much variation. You lessen the genetic diversity. But like you said, don't give up. Because the idea is to find the birds that stand out, get rid of everything else and improve them. And when you see the variations that work in your favor, you select those. And in time, the family takes shape. You continue that on, no matter whether you're running through the Founders Program or not. That's what you're doing. Looking for the standouts is key to improvement.
Let me ask you this, Frank, because I know you have some splash, I believe, on your farm. Is it easier to raise a family of splash compared to a family of spangled?
Yeah, it's a different color altogether. But here's the thing. Let's go to my silver grays. When I first started out with them, all of them showed red leakage all over them, to the point to where the wing pads were bright orange. So I kept breeding them. They was getting worse and worse. So I finally gathered up, educated myself, knowed what I was doing. So I'm back breeding them. Within 3 years, all of them come so silver, they're almost snow white on the grays. Each year I get a less percentage of the ones with the red leakage. I get a few, but every year that dwindles down. Now in a couple of years, if I play my cards right and I select the way I need to, I know those is going to go away. Now, will one ever pop back up again? Yes. I know it's never going to be 100% that I'm going to wipe them completely out. But down like Kenny was talking about, tighten that gene pool up to where you're making your selections better each year. And it shows with the offspring. You'll get less and less of what you're going away from.
Yeah. So when it comes to variation, A lot of people talk about variation and they think they do their inbreeding, they breed brother and sister, and they think that because they're brother and sister, that there's no variation in the offspring because the gene pool's already so tight that they get themselves into an issue of inbreeding depression and other factors because they are so tight that you won't see the variation. I'm saying that even breeding brother and sister with our chickens, they're not identical twins. Their genetic makeup, their DNA is actually quite different, more than you would think. They still go through meiosis. They still go through the crossover event. They still go through gene recombination. So you're still going to get that variation. Even when you breed brother and sister, even with a close family, you're still going to see variation in the offspring. And it's up to you to select the ones that you want to move forward with and get rid of the rest. Even from a brother and sister mating, not all the offspring are going to be awesome. No matter what breeding you're doing, the offspring you produce from any breeding, you're not going to breed from all of them. You're always going to select from that, starting with the 10% and then selecting the standouts after that. So just understand that variation occurs no matter how tight they are.
And now it depends. If the birds are from a true family and you do an inbreeding brother and sister, your majority of birds will be nicer birds. If they've not went through a program, a cleanup program, you're going to see some nasty, ugly looking stuff in there. But like Kenny said, you're only looking for those couple individuals that you can go on with. You don't need all the other ones. So if you get one good one and 50 that's junk, four-eyed, four legs, that sort of thing, it's no worries because you've got the one that you needed. Your job's done.
The inbreeding that you do, the brother and sister mating you do in the beginning of a breeding program, and the results you're going to get are completely different, like Frank said, from the one you do after the family's somewhat established, because you're already getting a lot of uniformity, a lot of consistency. So you're seeing predictability and repeatability. But when you do that inbreeding later in the program, an established family, it's like Frank said, now they're still not identical. You're still going to get the variation. And a lot of times it's going to be very subtle, but they're even more uniform, more consistent, and you get a better result. Like in the beginning of a breeding program, you're doing the inbreeding, you'll see good birds, mediocre, and really bad birds. I don't care what animal you're breeding, you still get the same thing. That's kind of what you want because that's going to help you select, and then it's a furthering of the cleanup process. But at the end of the breeding program, if you decide to do an inbreeding, you don't get it as much. The bad isn't as bad as you would think. The mediocre is better than you would expect, and the good are really good. The coals are a lot less at that point. It's kind of cool.
So are you saying the variation is a lot less?
What I'm saying is, let's say you create a family, use a proper breeding program like the Founders Program. You get at the end, and I'm trying to be careful what I say here, but you decide to go ahead and let's tighten them up a little more and do some inbreeding. No matter how tight they are, that variation's there. So everybody's always afraid of losing the variation, losing the genetic diversity, getting them so tight that you start getting disease and defects and things like that. Well, if you put them through a proper cleanup process like we promote in the Founders Program, you're not going to see those kind of defects as much. You're definitely not going to see disease because you've been culling them out all along. The only reason you're going to see disease is because you brought another bird with that particular defect or disease onto your yard that wasn't there before, and then it changes everything. So the last thing you want to do when you have a family that established is to do any kind of crossing, outcrossing, or infusion because you just started over. You recombinate the genes, they went through meiosis, they went through the crossover event, you recombinate the genes, now they're completely different than they were before.
Kenny, that's the reason we always tell people the trio method doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because the two sisters are different. Even though they're sisters, their genetic makeup is totally different. And that's the reason we always tell them, if you do go get a trio, single mate them, find out which hen produces the best, go with her, do away with the other and keep her for a backup. But do not bring her back in once you start your family that way. That's where a lot of people messes up.
Because they're doing something that's similar to line breeding right off the bat. And we don't promote that with the Founders Program because 99% of the time, you're line breeding birds that weren't ready to be line bred. They had too much variation, too much genetic diversity. If you're line breeding them and you're seeing a lot of variation within the offspring as you go, you see it right there. They weren't cleaned up. You're just never going to get there. And then what do? They think it's going to boost them up, refreshing them. Like Frank said, they have the two sisters that started with the outside cock. Then they breed them together and then increase the genetic diversity and the variation that's in the family because they were two different hens and they were line breeding into their offspring going in two different directions. And then they brought them back You can't do that when you haven't cleaned them up properly. So the trio method is a very flawed method. I understand it. I used to teach it myself years ago. I thought it was the best way to go. It's the best way to get a trio and start, but it really isn't. It's a lot more flawed than most people would think.
Well, I had a Facebook friend comment on one of my posts. I think it was this week. And we were talking, and he asked me if I saw a worse health in my foundation fowl than I did my hybrids. And I said, no, one's as healthy as the other. And he said, well, I have a problem with my foundation fowl being unhealthier than my hybrids are. And I said, well, it's selection. It's basic selection. You select birds that's never been sick, that show no sign of illness, that's vigorous. You're going to have a healthy family. But all it takes is a couple times to put unhealthy bird in that chain, and then you've mixed it all up. You're going to keep that sickness in there until you breed it totally away from it. Get rid of it.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, that the purer they are, the weaker they are, the smaller they are. It's just selection. Because if you're not culling hard as you go, we say it all the time, you get what you tolerate. Whether it's a sickness or a defect, if you're willing to tolerate and breed to it, you're going to exaggerate it and make it worse. If you're not being careful which birds you're selecting, a lot of people can select the cock, but they can't select the hen. A lot of times they're losing size because they're selecting the wrong hens. I've seen it a million times where I said, let me see your birds, because they're getting smaller. Well, they're not really careful about the hens they select. They're selecting the hens because they belong to a certain name, or they just happen to have a really good plumage. And there was something about the hen that attracted them, but they weren't really paying attention to the size. Almost all of them will tell you it wasn't something that happened overnight. It's something that gradually happened, and they woke up one day and says, whoa, my chickens are smaller than they used to be. But it happened gradually over time. It's not something that just happened. So you can see where it's the selection.
I see that a lot, Kenny. Say I'm making a recipe, and this gasoline over here has a cherry on top of it. And I take the gasoline to get the cherry, and I put it into the recipe. Well, I've destroyed my recipe. That's what a lot of people's doing. They see a cherry, but they're willing to put other really bad stuff in there with the possibility of just getting the cherry, and it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, and I hear it all the time too. It just cracks me up because they go, well, my birds were getting smaller because they're getting too pure. So I crossed them, and then they got the size back. And I'm like, well, first of all, you weren't selecting properly in the first place, so you lost the size. Because I have birds out here, the family's over 30 years old, and I have not lost the size. Would you say my birds are small, Frank?
No.
Okay.
Actually, they're on the bigger side, really.
They could be a little bit.
Yeah, they could be.
Yeah.
They've got the structure for it, even as young birds.
Yeah. So they're not getting smaller. When they cross or added blood into them, we talk about this all the time. I feel like a broken record, but they got hybrid vigor. And that's what hybrid vigor does. It makes the offspring bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter than the parent. It's overdominance is what it is. And we talk about all the time where when you have a heterosis, which is hybrid vigor, what you get is, let's say the parents that I'm breeding, the crosses that I'm doing, let's say that they're 100% of their potential. We're just making that the mark. Breed them together, I get offspring, and I get offspring that are 120, 130% of the parent's potential. It seems like it was a great breeding, very impressive, and you think you hit the jackpot. So now you think you got really good birds, so you decide you're going to make a family from that. So you start to breed them within the family, and they don't actually maintain hybrid vigor. They don't actually improve hybrid vigor. They actually get offspring that are so unpredictable, it's crazy. And a lot of times they go not the 120, 130 that their parents were, or their grandparents, which was 100% potential. They actually drop down to 80 or 90%. They actually go below. So everybody freaks out. Well, the family didn't work out. The genes weren't there. I guess I'll bring in new blood. And I hear all the time, I hear it in the dog community, and I hear it in the chicken community, that I'm outcrossing to improve hybrid vigor, or I'm outcrossing to maintain hybrid vigor. There's no such thing as improving hybrid vigor or maintaining hybrid vigor. There's no such thing, because hybrid vigor is a one-time deal. The hybrid bird is the product. It's not inheritable. It's not passed to the next generation. It's just like the opposite of hybrid vigor, which is inbreeding depression, which is also neither inheritable or passed to the next generation. So get this idea out of your head that I want to search for hybrid vigor. Hybrid vigor is a product of breeding two different animals together for a particular purpose, whatever that may be. Chickens could be anything. But the idea of improving them as you go through hybrid vigor, that thinking is wrong. That's flawed.
It can be done. And if they read on meiosis, they'll find that out as well. Meiosis explains that reason why it can't be passed on.
Well, that will show why you have variation for sure.
Right.
But heterosis and inbreeding depression, two factors on the opposite side of the coin, both of them are not inherited, not passed to the next generation. It's a one-time deal. Just get that in your head. So the idea of outcrossing to improve a family, you didn't improve anything, you changed them. And they're not what they used to be.
What gets me, though, guys, is people think that because you've got a foundation bird and not a hybrid, that they should like bantams. They should be 3 pounds, 10 ounces, and look like hummingbirds. Even though hybrids are bigger, faster, all the above, better. There's no reason why you can't make a foundation bird, a pure trait bird, look just as good on the outside, the same proportions, the same size, good vigor. So the hybrids better? Yes, but your straight bred birds don't have to look like pigeons either to be pure trait bird. You can still have the same conformation, the same looks on the outside of that bird as that hybrid bird does. It doesn't mean that because he's straight bred, he's got to be less to the hybrid as the way he looks and his size.
When you breed two seed fowl together, which is your Adam and Eve, and they're unrelated, the offspring are going to be hybrids, but you're basically matching up the genes as best you can. And the better you match them, the chance of you getting there quicker is better. That way you don't have the variation and the genetic diversity to weed through. But the idea is, yes, you can create a family from hybrid birds, but it's done over many generations. Doing the right methods at the right time over many generations will get you there. You just can't keep adding outside blood thinking you're refreshing them to improve them, because you're not. You're just starting over. You just shuffle the genes. You know, it's like shuffling cards. But understand that you're dealing with either monogenic traits, which is dominant recessive. Those are simple. Easy to fix, easy to improve, easy to eliminate. Then you got the polygenic traits, which you're only going to get by improving, bringing to the highest intensity over many generations. And those are all the form and function traits. So yes, hybrid offspring are going to excel in those areas only because of hybrid vigor, but to maintain them or think you're maintaining or to improve them along the way, it's selecting for those traits over multiple generations, which is going to make it happen.
That's me. I want to maintain my birds. I want my birds to be my birds the way I bred them. And by taking outside blood and adding to those birds, I'm changing them forever. They will never, ever be those same birds again, ever. So that's where a lot of people, they had these great birds over time. And then 4 or 5 years down the road, they're saying, I've lost my birds. My birds are not what they're supposed to be. But, you know, they kept adding blood. They watered them down over a period of time to make them non-existent, pretty much. By using a proper breeding program, you're keeping those birds. As long as you want to be a breeder and do what you're supposed to, there's no expiration on keeping those birds where they're at while still improving.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
Going back to birds getting smaller and smaller throughout the seasons and thinking that, you know, you're getting into
Hybrid vigor?
No, depression.
Oh, inbreeding
Okay.
depression.
Inbreeding depression is what I'm trying to say. Would it be a good idea every breeding season you take a picture of your flock and you can compare from year to year? It kind of shows you where you're going with your flock.
It's always good to take pictures and video every year to compare. Yeah.
So in that way, you're checking yourself. Are you going in the direction you should be going? Or are you going in a bad direction? You're not even noticing that you're going in a bad direction because it's so subtle. like the frog being thrown in a pot of water and slowly going to a boil.
Yeah.
I do all that. I keep
Mhm.
records on every hen. That is her resume for me. I look at her offspring, the percentage of them was good, the culls, the defects, the whole 9 yards. That's her resume on her offspring when they're bred out. Do I breed her again after that? Do I not breed her again after that? The roosters the same way. Every year, it's just like a resume. Do they have this? Do they have that? And compare all of them together. And once again, I'll say it, selection. It's all about selection, every bit of it.
Yeah. Record keeping, documentation, video, pictures. Yeah, it all works.
It may take me 3 or 4 months just to go through and look at potentials. If I need some new ones to breed, I'll leave them in a pen and I watch their every move. And I never pick out the ones that I want. It's always something that I dislike. If I see something that I dislike, I'll remove her from the pen. And I'll go the next day, sit down there, me and Amanda talk, have our discussions, whatever. And I'm watching the chickens. If I see another one that does something that I really don't like or see something I don't like about her, I'll take her out. Only down to a handful of birds, and then I make my choice.
I always tell people, cull hard, then select. Don't start selecting until you've culled hard. It makes it a lot easier when you're dealing with less birds. And the whole idea is to get down to the top 10%, like we talked about. Then from there, you grow them up a little further, and then you select the standout. So that's what's going to move your family forward.
Take it from Mother Nature. You cull like Mother Nature does, you'll do good.
Okay, well, here's my next question. What's your deadline to start putting your birds together in the springtime? Is it March, April, May? Before you figure out, okay, I've got to make my decisions now. Where is your deadline? Because I know it isn't July, because that's the middle of summer.
I want to be ready for breeding season. So I'm culling all the time. We cull starting with the eggs. We're looking at the baby chicks, looking for anything that's obvious. Anytime I pick up a bird, move a bird, I'm checking them then. I wait till the birds get close to 2 years before I consider them as something I'm going to breed. I want to have my brood pen set up by January, maybe February tops, so that I'm ready for breeding. A lot of times I already know what I'm breeding for the most part because I know my breeding program. I know who's going to be bred to who. I know what families I want to move forward and how I'm going to do it. My goal is to be ready before they start laying.
Okay, so let me ask you one more question because I'm seeing eggs come through the post office for breeding purposes for hatching. Would you say that getting eggs from a bird that just finished the molt, what's the quality going to be? Should you be waiting till January, February before you buy eggs from somebody else?
I think you're taking a risk no matter what, tell you the truth. Okay.
That's what I was thinking. It doesn't matter really because you're taking a chance either way you go getting eggs.
I try to stay as close to Mother Nature as possible. Eggs are hit and miss. The fact that they're getting eggs that time of year, they could have lights on them. Are they fertile? That's my biggest question. They're going through a lot when they're going through the molt. Are they producing quality eggs at that point? Are they even feeding them or giving the birds the attention that they need? I'm just not a big proponent of hatching or breeding in the wintertime or in the summertime. And I want those birds to be able to go through the molt properly without trying to look for ways to stimulate egg production at that time. I'm not big into that.
I always let my birds tell me when to put them up. They let me know. When
And
they're
how's
ready to
that?
go, by their actions, their plumage, their health, the way they act. Are they laying every day, every other day, once every 3 or 4 days?
Mm-hmm.
They'll let you know. They'll start dumping the eggs out fast when it's time. When the daylight hours get more, they're just like a clock. They'll let you know. They'll start dumping the eggs out left and right.
And the hens start squatting for the roosters.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they're
Yeah,
not
they're
cooperating with the
cooperating.
roosters, they're not ready.
that's right. They'll let you know, basically. If you watch them, they will let you know when it's time and they're ready to go.
Right. So for somebody who has to get hatching eggs, they definitely don't want to get it from a hatchery. They want to get eggs for a type of a variety from a breeder. It's best to wait until January, February to purchase eggs. Would you say?
Well, I'm just not big into ordering eggs. I think you're taking a risk.
Thing about it is, I want to get my birds off time they feather out because I keep them up until they completely feather out. Now, if they're with their mama or incubator hatched, it determines what the weather is out. Is it warm? But when I free range them, I want them to be plenty of bugs. I want to be plenty of insects. I want a lot of green, say around, spring of the year. Time I turn them out, I want all that to be abundant for them. I don't want to turn them out and hit 20, 30 degrees. They're not going to do well. They're not going to do well at all. So the weather, the month has a lot to do with it. I want it to be spring, warmer weather, and plenty for them to eat. because I tell you what Mother Nature produces for our birds to eat free ranging is like no other than we can feed them. You take a bird that runs out free ranging, pick him up and fill of him, it's just totally different what the bodies that it can put on them.
I believe the birds you produce and how they grow and develop in the wintertime is completely different than what you get in the spring. Whether you buy the eggs from someone else or whatever. I'm just not a big proponent, first of all, of getting eggs. I'd rather get chicks over eggs. And I'd rather get a mature trio over chicks.
I see it every day, horror stories, people ordering one strain. And then when they get their eggs and they hatch, it's just, everything on the sun. People going around and picking eggs up out of just random cages.
Yeah.
And sending an egg thinking, well, it's not going to hatch anyway. And then they get a couple to hatch and it's not even what they ordered. It's the biggest ripoff on the sun.
And if you're going to buy a trio or a pair, try to go pick them out yourself if possible. Other than that, you're taking a chance.
It's terrible out there today.
We say it all the time. I think there's good birds on a pillar's farm, and I think there's good birds on a breeder's farm. You just got to know what to select. And if you're taking the chance to let them pick them for you, then you're taking a big risk, and the chances of you making a family are going to be slim.
I'd have to know the guy damn well to do that.
That's true.
I'd have to trust him. I'd have to trust him to do that.
A lot of people say, I'm waiting to get my birds, and then I'm going to join the Breeders' Academy. And I'm going, no. If that's where you're at, man, join the Breeders' Academy now so that you know which birds to select. Because we're going to show you what they should look like, what they should have, how they should be built. We're going to give you an idea of the type conformation of the bird, all the defects that exist. And you're going to go there educated. You're going to go there with a little bit of knowledge so that you can actually select the birds that are going to work for you. Do they need to be pure? No. If I can look at a bird and he has phenotype that I'm looking for, that I can build from, he's not sick, doesn't have any major flaws, I can build a family from that. And if I can select a hen to go with it, I may have to find a hen from another farm. As long as it matches the cock that I'm selecting and vice versa, I'm good to go. You got to go into this a little bit educated. Kind of know what you're dealing with so that you're getting off on the right foot. But if you're depending on others or someone to get you good birds, I hear all the time, and it's just so disappointing. I hate being the bearer of bad news saying, well, can you get another pair? Can you look a little further? Because these two have a lot of issues.
Well, think about it this way. They get a pair or a trio chickens. It's 2 years before they know anything, before you get chicks mature enough out of it to even test them for the qualities that you're looking for in the bird. And then by that time, you realize, oh, I got a bunch of junk. So that's 2 years just destroyed right off the bat. That's the chance that you're taking from getting birds from people that you don't know, is to realize that in 2.5 years that they ripped you off.
Maybe $1,000 or $2,000 on top of it too.
Yeah. And all the time and all that money, all your feed money to just cull everything. So it's something I would look into. And I thank God every day that I've already got my chickens established and I don't have to go out looking for other birds to buy. But if I was, I'd use my head, I'd do my research. I would know that guy's routine so good that I know him better than he knew himself before I'd buy birds for him. It would be that critical to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the guys here said that he just couldn't afford a trio at the time. So he went ahead and got some day-old chicks, and they all turned out to be junk. And it's like what you said, Frank. How much is your time and money? How much is all that worth to you? Save your money. Save up until you can buy a trio and start from there. You know, with the chicks, you've got to wait a couple of years, let them grow up and see if they're going to be any good or not. When you have a trio, you know what you're getting into.
You might get variation from the trio, but we always say hatch as many as you can manage and afford, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. That will give you the selection you need to find the two, at least, that are going to move you forward. It's all you need to move forward, and that's the key. The problem is they're not patient, and they're not educated enough to know. I don't want that to sound bad, but they're just not ready to select the right birds. You know,
not that they're smart; they're just not educated in the proper structure and know-how on the chick.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we say it all the time. Look on social media; it's a crapshoot. They're so bad; they just don't know it. You know, they're proud of them if they're showing them, if they're posting them, but they're so off. It's not even funny.
I could have hit a nerve the other day. I done a short article, and it was replicators versus true breeders. And I heard crickets on it. So not much, but it's basically people buying a pair or trio off one breeder and replicating them and not trying to improve them or look for defects or just whatever they get, and everything they get, they breed from that. Every bird's got a value in it. And that's not the way a true breeder does. It's not close.
We hear it all the time. And Frank really opened my eyes to this. But they're using, and I didn't get it at first, but they're using line breeding to maintain the family. That doesn't even make sense to me. So when they get birds, I hear it all the time on other interviews where the guy will go, yeah, I use line breeding, and my only goal is to maintain the family, to keep the family as I got them from the breeder. It doesn't even dawn on them that they need to improve them, that they can improve them. They think it's good enough that they keep them the way they were when they first got them. That just amazes me.
The thing about it is man-made game fowl. Without man, game fowl would not exist in this world. We made every attribute of those birds. Every strain you see out there, man-made. God give us the knowledge to do it, but man took the hands and made what strains that we have today. And a lot of people is not even leery of that. They don't even know that. They think a hatch popped out of an egg and a kelso popped out of the egg. They don't even know it's the name of an actual breeder that bred the chicken. They think it's like a Dalmatian or a collie born that way.
No, we create the form, the function, the beauty, and the purpose of that bird. We have to selectively breed them just to keep it. And yes, we can improve them as we go.
It's amazing how different people see it in different ways. But, it's like I always tell people, a lot of people will shun science. They push science away. And then they turn around, they're using science every day, multiple times. Everything that we do in life every day is related to science. Our computers, our vehicles, everything.
That's been a struggle of mine since the beginning, was getting people to embrace the science and understand there's a reason for it. There's a purpose for it. There's a way to use it to your benefit. That if you work against Mother Nature and you also work against the science and you work toward old wives' tales, you're just not going to get the results you think you're going to get.
But here's the thing. You're not going to get the results you think you're getting because you aren't educated in knowing what the proper way of breeding is. You don't know what you don't know.
That's true. That's true. But sometimes they know there's a better way, but they don't want to take the time to do it. So like we said, instead of following science, trying to improve them, then we're doing what Frank was saying earlier. We're just replicating them. All we're doing is keeping the family alive without trying to really improve them.
Here's the thing too, respect. How much respect do you have for yourself? If you're going to breed everything and you're going to sell everything,
I don't even think they think of it like that, Nancy.
But
I do.
Should.
Do you?
Because
I do.
everything that
Well,
leaves your
I'm talking
farm,
about most people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not what they're thinking at the time.
But
Yeah.
everything
Well,
that leaves your farm is a
it's a representation
of you.
I would say everybody on the Breeders' Academy, that's how they think.
Oh, I know that's how they think.
A lot of chicken people do, because it's like this. You sell somebody a bad bird and they breed them and it comes out all bad and everything, your name is mud. You give them good birds, they breed them, and every bird they get is 1,000% perfect in every way. And what they want, they'll never mention your name one time. But you sell them bad birds, they will put you underneath your house as far as talking bad about you now. I'll tell you that.
Isn't it crazy how that works? That's why I give out compliments as much as I do. Like, people don't hear the good things. They hear about the complaints mostly. So when I see something good, I like your dress. You gave us good service. What a great waitress you are. Just things like that.
You're right, Nancy. People doesn't hear it. When your work is recognized, it gives it purpose. It makes you feel good about what you've done, because you know the sweat and tears and blood that you have into making that bird. So when people give you a compliment on it, it does feel good because it's reward for your hard work.
So the next one is inheritance. Now, it was interesting because we were talking about heterosis and hybrid vigor. And although we strive for hybrid vigor, we try to maintain hybrid vigor. But the whole idea is that the traits that we like, the traits that we desire, or the traits that they need for survival in the wild have to be able to be passed down from generation to generation. And hybrid vigor is one of those things that they want so bad, but it's not passed down from generation to generation. So the idea is to select in a way, or having birds that can pass their traits to next generation, so that we're passing not only desirable traits, but we're accumulating them in such a way that it becomes more prominent within the family over time. So little by little, we're improving them. We're selecting the traits we like. We're exaggerating them to the point where we got them where we want them. We fixate them, and we get to a point where the whole family's sharing them. So the idea is to get family of birds, or get at least a seed fowl, your Adam and Eve, that can pass those traits to the next generation so that we can move forward. Not all birds can do that. They must have beneficial, homozygous, dominant traits. The more homozygous dominant traits they have, the better off. Some recessives are okay if that's part of the breed, but a lot of recessives are very dangerous and they could be even lethal. Okay, we want them to carry those traits at the highest intensity. So the higher the intensity that they carry them, the better it's going to be passed. And if they're more inbred, the more proponent they're going to be, the chances of them passing them to their offspring is going to be better. Okay, so we're always looking for good proponency in the male and good mitochondrial DNA in the female. So when we're looking at the 4 stages of evolution, inheritance is a big one, Frank.
It's super big. But the thing about it is, a lot of people says this bird has a trait, this bird has a trait. A lot of times they're just looking at one trait in particular, when the bird has nothing else going for it except for that one trait. And they automatically go to that bird to breed it. In other words, I'm saying a lot of birds that's being bred today should never been bred to start with. Should never be living and breathing to be able to breed again. Same way with Mother Nature. If it's lacking in any type of way, it's gone. You know, it's fox food, it's coyote food, it's whatever it should be. Mother Nature has a way of taking birds out of the equation that shouldn't be bred back. Do some breed back that shouldn't be bred back? Yeah, it does happen. But Mother Nature's got a way of taking care of that. If we bred as close as Mother Nature, we would automatically be better breeders than we could ever be just by following Mother Nature's path.
Yeah. See, the problem is, I think when most people buy birds, they just assume that the traits they carry, they're going to be passed to the next generation. Now, if they're already hybrids, chances are they're not going to see it in the following generation. It's by doing, like, let's say, a back cross, taking those hybrid offspring, bringing back to the parents so we can get a little more from the parents so that we can move forward from there. And then we see it in the 3rd and 4th generation, and then we're good to go. So what happens is they get the birds they think are going to be good. They breed them one time. Hybrid vigor kicks in. They see variation. It's not the traits they were looking for. They give up on them. Sometimes we need to go a little further than that. Sometimes we need to do the back cross to get more from the parents. But just don't assume that whenever you buy birds, that they're going to pass those traits to their offspring. And if you see birds that are not proper, they're not good representations of their breed and variety, chances are they're not going to pass those traits. If you're dealing with animals, let's say birds, I got a cock and hen, they have contrasting characteristics, chances are we're definitely not going to see those traits pass to the next generation like we hope. So although inheritance is a big factor, especially in the wild, it's one of the things that matter when it comes to evolution, whether a species is not only created, but it moves forward generation after generation, survives the elements. We have to emulate Mother Nature. We have to emulate evolution and try to select the best birds we can that have the beneficial homozygous dominant traits, that have those traits at the highest intensity. And then breed them, and then let's hope that they do pass to the next generation. If not, then we do the back cross that we need to get more from the parents, breed them again, and see where we're at. Just don't assume that they're going to pass those genes.
Yeah, 90% of the time, if you get the birds off somebody that you want the birds with the traits they possess, usually you get the birds that look like them, but they're not holding on to those traits that made you want to get them to start with. Kenny's 1,000% right on that. Seen that a million times. People get birds, they expect it to be a carbon copy of the ones on that guy's yard.
Yep.
And a lot of times that's not so.
That's true. Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Good point. Okay. So there's not a whole lot to say there. That's a pretty simple one. The next one would be overproduction of offspring, which is known as the competition for resources. So what we're usually dealing with in the wild is competition for food, shelter, and access to mates. You can't move on to the next generation if you can't do those things. So what happens in the wild is that they produce more offspring than can survive to adulthood. So a lot of times what will happen, let's just use the jungle fowl, for instance. Let's stay as close to chickens as possible. So an average jungle fowl has maybe 10 eggs. Okay, so let's say all the chicks hatch. A lot of times, only a small percentage of those chicks actually survive. So they actually hatch more than can survive. The ones that survive are nice, strong, they have what they need, they're adaptable to their environment, and those are the ones that are actually going to grow up and reproduce. So we emulate that when it comes to selective breeding, and we say it all the time, and this is how I came up with it in the first place, was the overproduction of offspring, was we hatch as many chicks as we can manage and afford. Just like Mother Nature, she's going to select through those, cull out the weak ones, the ones that can't survive. The ones that can survive are usually pretty good. We want to emulate that. So we want to hatch as many offspring as we can so that we have a really good selection. That way we can cull really hard any sick or defective birds, any substandard birds. And then from there, we can select the standouts that we want to move forward with. So that was my way of emulating Mother Nature, evolution, and using it towards selective breeding.
The other animals have to eat, and that's what they do. They eat their culls.
The differential survival and reproduction is basically natural selection. So it's back to variation. So the variation that survive are the ones that are going to survive in their environment, are the ones that are going to be able to pass their genes to the next generation. And that's the key, is to get them to a point where they survive their environment just long enough to produce offspring that advances the family. And that's what happens in Mother Nature. And so that's what we need to do, is get at least enough. So let's say you buy a trio, or let's say you buy a pair, though you're Adam and Eve, you have offspring. And you say, well, the offspring aren't that good. And I've seen so many people say, okay, well, the offspring weren't any good. I only got a couple that were really good because I got some that were bad. I'm not breeding any of them. They're showing a flaw. Well, no, that's not what happens in natural selection. That shouldn't happen in our own backyards. So the idea is to breed to them. If we get one cock and hen that are good representations of what we're looking for, even though all the other ones are bad, those are the ones we want to move forward with. Because that was the whole idea, to get them to a point where they survive long enough just to have offspring, and hopefully that they produce a small number that we can actually move forward with. And then we cull everything else and then go on. That's how you do it.
I've seen entire yards culled just because of a couple birds.
I know it. Yeah. Like performance ability. Now, a lot of things can be attached to that depending on the bird you breed. Okay, I don't want to get into specifics. But I've seen where they saw one had bad performance ability and they killed the whole family because of one bird. What they didn't realize was it was a polygenic trait. That one bird showed a low intensity. So when we're dealing with multi-gene traits, which is polygenic traits, we're dealing with measurable traits. So they're quantitative in nature. This is a distribution population graph. Performance ability. Well, if you look at the entire family, you're going to see variations on that particular trait. Some are going to be really good. Some are going to be really bad. When you look at the height of the bell-shaped curve, that's what the majority are. And the idea is to get that bell-shaped curve as far over to the good side as possible so you have more of the good birds. But every family, no matter the trait, is going to have some birds that show the low intensity. And if I have one bird that shows that intensity or that particular trait, it's crazy to kill the whole family because of that one bird. The problem is they just didn't understand the genetic factors that make up that trait.
And the thing too, Kenny, it may not even been genetics. The genetics could have been there, and it was more or less a nutrition or sickness causing for him to reach his total potential or her potential. There's still different aspects that could have evolved to make it not the bird's actual fault.
Yeah, but to decide the whole family on one bird, especially when
That's
we're talking
crazy.
about a multi-gene quantitative trait, man, I see it all the time, and it just drives me nuts. It's like, wow, if you only knew what you were dealing with. That's the bird you cull. You select the ones that show the highest intensity for that particular trait. You improve the family over time. What do? If they keep the family, they add new blood, recombinate the genes, start all over. They didn't improve anything.
Like that fixed it.
They didn't fix anything.
I've seen it many times. Now, if it's all of them doing it, I could see it. But only a couple birds expressing weakness in that area, I can't see it just for that lower of a percentage. But now I have seen it many, many times.
Okay. The next one is dealing with the epigenetics. Now, this one gets a lot of people in trouble because we see this all the time where, let's say I get a trio from Frank. He lives in Kentucky. I live in California. I bring them here. I start breeding them. I start raising them. I'm looking at them maybe a couple years down the road. I start looking at the offspring. I compare them to Frank's. And I'm like, wow, mine are so different than Frank's. Well, there's a few things that can change a family, and it's due to epigenetics, is geographical location, environmental factors such as weather, predation, and food, and then whether they can adapt to their surroundings, which a lot of times it's disease, whether they can survive the diseases that are in their area. So what happens is that the histone modifications, which work like knobs, and the DNA methylation, which works like switches, depending on their environment, will actually turn off or turn on genes that were there or weren't there before. So I might get birds from Frank and they might start showing traits that he never saw before. It's like a genetic trigger. Or they work like knobs where you're dealing with traits like the polygenics where you either gain intensity or lose intensity in that particular trait. And that's all stimulated through their environments by the 3 factors we were talking about. So as a breeder, those are the factors we're dealing with. We don't really have control of those per se. What's going to happen is what's going to happen. The environment's going to either express certain traits or depress certain traits. So we have to deal with it. So the best we can do as a breeder is what we call the 3-legged stool. We try to manage our farm the best we can. We try to create the environment as best we can. And then we cull or select for good health, feed them properly, which is nutrition. And then we have, from the phenotype, we look at the genetic inheritance, the genes that are expressed. We select accordingly, which is trait selection. And it's all about selection intensity after that. Selecting for the particular trait, exaggerating that trait to a point where it's repeating itself, and then we move from there. So epigenetics is a major factor that confuses people. They don't know what to do. They see things happening. They start blaming other people. They give up on the family, not knowing that no matter what they bring, they could get more birds. I can get more birds than Frank. It's going to do the same thing all over again. Knowing how to handle it, how to deal with it, and how to prove the family from there. So it's get what you can and then move forward and then create the family you want. So if I buy a family from Frank, bring them here, chances are they're going to be different. Can I make a family? Yes. Are they going to be different than Frank's? Yes. But I can definitely build a family from that if I understand the effects of epigenetics.
Just a change in nutrition alone is a big change. Just one aspect of those 3. Just one can make a totally different strain.
People say, well, genetics doesn't matter. It's not important. Well, it really is, because without genetics, if you understand the genetic factors, you're not able to look at a trait and know what the genetic factors of that trait are, you can't select them properly. You can't mate them properly. Therefore, you're not going to get the results you hope for. So a lot of people are dependent on, well, they still to this day think it's a blending effect. And then you got epigenetics, which kind of complicates things, because even though you're following genetics, different things can be expressed that you didn't know were there. I'm not talking about genes that weren't already there. Those genes were there. They were just hidden. It was epigenetics that expressed it or depressed it.
Allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
Epigenetics is great. Well, you read it, you understand it, it opens up so many doors for you as far as breeding.
Yeah. All you can do at that point is like I did, because my birds weren't from here. They were from Alabama. And they were quite different than everybody else's, and they were expressing all kinds of things. And I said all the time, I looked for the variations that worked in my favor. I spread to the traits that I liked, and over time they improved. And that's all you can really do is look for the beneficial traits, whatever is expressed. You breed to them. You cull the ones you don't like. You cull the sick, defective, the undesirable. And from there, it's all about increasing genetic frequency, which is going to give you the uniformity that you need, give you the consistency you need, the predictability and repeatability. And then selection intensity by selecting the highest intensity and improve them there, which is polygenic traits usually.
On the polygenic side, it can take years to get where you need to go. But in one breeding, a cock or a hen can be all lost overnight.
And I've been preaching that for a long time, that it's so dangerous to add new blood.
Yes.
It's like Frank said, that it takes so long, generations, to perfect a multi-gene trait, a quantitative trait, like the ones that are always trying to improve and they think they do it by adding new blood. Look at some of the traits that we see in all different breeds, whether it's egg production, broodiness, performance ability, whatever. All those traits, it didn't come out of the wild with those traits. Those traits were selectively bred over multiple generations. So those traits were created. They weren't created overnight. They took many years to create. But like you breed to the wrong bird, it can be gone overnight. I've seen families destroyed because they weren't careful what they were bringing into their family. And all they had to do is just keep selecting to the highest intensity and improving it over time.
Seen that more times than I like, even myself. It's happened to me. It's happened to friends of mine. One bird actually destroyed their whole yard and the birds that they had. And they were doing it to improve them, thinking they were going to make it better. You think, yeah, that'll work. But in the real world of genetics and the way it takes place, it doesn't work there.
Well, it's a delusion. they get caught up in, like we talked about, they feel like their family is having issues. So they bring in outside blood, which we know now, it's hybrid vigor. Most people don't even know it's hybrid vigor. They just see the bump in the offspring and they go, wow, that worked. I've got great offspring again. I'm good to go.
I'm done.
Yeah. So they think they fixed it. They think that's the answer because they got those results. That way of doing things sticks in their head. So then they breed them again. They say, okay, I'm going to start tightening up the family. And all of a sudden the offspring are all over the place, which is what happens. And they're like, oh, okay, well, something must have happened. I bred to the wrong bird. It didn't work. They didn't have the genes I was hoping for. Let's bring in outside blood. They get another bump and they think that's the way to do it. So because they tried to breed pure, one generation usually, and they got better results when they crossed, which we know now is temporary, they think that's the way to go. They don't understand that breeding pure, creating a family, takes multiple generations. It takes time.
If you make a good family from scratch, even if you start out with good seed fowl, you're looking at 10, 12 years to get where you need it to be. Maybe longer if it's not as good.
Yeah, I say it takes 5 to 6 years to see if you're going in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
You should know by then whether things are starting to work out. And then, like Frank said, it could take 8, 9, 10 years to say, I've improved gene frequency, I'm getting uniformity I like, and they're starting to shape up, I'm getting good predictability, they're able to repeat themselves, I got a family. And it could take another 5 years to really fine tune them to a point where like, wow, now they look really regal. What's wrong, Nancy?
I got to say this really quick. You know what I really hate is I got a good question and I'm thinking of it and I'm waiting for you to be quiet.
I'm
and
never
then
going to
you
be quiet.
Say the answer before I have a chance to ask the dang question.
Welcome to my world, Nancy.
Oh my God, seriously. So I'm like, how am I going to get into this conversation? Okay, I got a really good question.
You know, but my mind's
always
actually saying, okay, wrap it up and give Frank a chance. Okay. You know, because this happened to me one time. I was in Mexico with Tony, and the guy running the event said, hey, I want you and Tony to go talk to all these breeders and help them out, give them advice, right? So I said, okay, Tony, you go first. And Tony, and obviously it was going to be tough because I learned from Tony, right? So he went half an hour giving all this information. And by the time he was done, I had nothing to give. And then Tony goes, okay, your turn, Kenny. I go, my turn what? You just said everything. You didn't give me anything to go on. So that still sticks in my head to this day, that when I'm going on and on, that although I have a lot to say and I want to go further, my mind's saying, okay, Kenny, it's time to wrap it up. Shut up. You let Frank in,
Well,
you know?
You'll see me, Kenny will be talking. We'll be talking about a subject. You'll see me go.
You know
I'll
what?
mark it off as he says it.
You know when I went too far? Is when I'm done and I give it to Frank. Frank goes, I go, okay, I didn't leave him anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to Tony, he's got such a great accent. You just love just sitting there and listening to him talk. And yeah, I know exactly what Kenny's saying.
But now I know
he
many a
can tell
time.
story for a long time.
Kenny will set me up, and I've seen this over time. And after the show, oh God, it makes me so frustrated.
Yeah.
He'll set me up with something beautiful to take over with, and it's just like, shoop,
Yeah.
right past my head.
That happens to me too. I'll listen to the show, see how it went.
God.
Because I can't tell by being in it. I have to go listen to it. And I realize Frank, like he said, he set me up so well. He brought up a great topic.
I do that.
And
all
I
the time.
just switched channels. I just went to another one. And I was like, wow, that was one we could actually elaborate on. That would have been really good information. I just went right by it like it wasn't even there.
That's probably the biggest thing that irks me is when I miss those opportunities, it's gone. You can't go back and redo it over. It's just like, daggone it.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that over again, you know?
It's either that or I'm scrolling through the outline trying to figure out where in the hell he is.
I skip around a lot.
That's
Some things
fair.
we already talked about. I didn't need to talk about again. But I do want to talk about this, which would be the next challenge. And it has to do with evolution. It really goes what we're talking about now is gene flow. Like we said, a lot of people are always adding new blood. They think they're making a family. They think outcrossing is always the answer. I see it in both dogs and chickens. And they think adding new blood all the time is the answer. And they think they can still call it a family or a strain or a bloodline. No, it's not. They're mongrels. They got so many bloodlines in them, there's nothing consistent about them whatsoever. Okay, and they can't repeat themselves like you think. So gene flow is interesting when it comes to evolution because what happens is you have, let's say, a group of birds in the wild, and they keep evolving because new birds from the outside keep coming in and they keep breeding to them. a species only comes about when the flow of genes stops. And then they start to refine themselves after that. Well, we have to follow that too. I may add new blood. I may go gene shopping and look for genes. I might like the genes from this bird. I might like the gene from that breed. And I might bring them in there. But I don't have a family until I stop bringing in new birds. I start doing what I tell everybody to do, is start looking for the variations I like, culling really hard anything that's obviously a fault but doesn't match what I think is the ideal trait for that particular breed or what I'm trying to create. And then after a while, they start to become a family. They start to become more uniform. That's only going to happen, Frank, when they stop the flow of genes. And we'll go back to what we were saying a minute ago was you have what they call the 1/16th infusion method, where they think, okay, well, the family seems to get a little inbred. A lot of times they don't even see evidence of it, but they feel that they're getting too inbred. They think they need to refresh the blood. So they add new genes to freshen the blood. Well, they didn't stop the flow of genes. That's no longer a family. They actually brought in hybridization, changed the family, and now they're starting all over. And that family ain't going to become a family again until, again, they stop the flow of genes, fine-tune them, and stop doing that altogether.
I'm going to say it again, and it seems like that's all I say, but that's what selection's all about. That's where the true breeder comes out and the selection comes in. I tell you what, in all the obstacles we have in the breeding game itself, selection can get you past every one of those if done correctly.
A lot of people go, well, what is gene flow when it comes to selective breeding? Simple. Outcrossing, crossbreeding, or infusion. Let's say you have a family that has a lot of genetic diversity, but you haven't added new blood. Random breeding. Not being very selective about the traits that you want to progress. So even though you have a family, you've never added outside blood, and you see that variation, that genetic diversity, if you're just random breeding, that's still gene flow.
Yeah, it truly is. The thing about it is, every 3 or 4 years, you're going to have different birds. People do that, and they think they're keeping their same strain. They still call them a pure strain, even though they're adding blood to them every 3 or 4 years. That's not a pure strain. That's not even close to being a pure strain.
I used to think the chicken breeders were the worst at this. I'm actually realizing it. I hate to say it, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the dog breeders are worse. They can actually, outcrossing is a major part of their breeding. Look at their pedigrees. They're always bringing in blood from outside, and they can sit there and call it a bloodline. No. Yeah. The closest they come to tighten up the gene pool is through what we call in and inbreeding, which is aunt to nephew, uncle to niece, and maybe cousin to cousin. Railroads. That's not inbreeding. That's not line breeding. That's in and inbreeding. Because when you're breeding an uncle to its niece, there's still half of that uncle's blood that's outside blood. That's still gene flow. You're not tightening up anything. You're not creating a family. You're still introducing outside blood.
You know the reason for that, though, don't you, Kenny?
What's
the reason
that?
They do it.
Why?
Is keep from them going, pew. They keep adding just a little bit of diversity in them to keep them going, to keep from them flatlining. But as soon as they start getting closer, they don't know how to keep that momentum up. Their birds go in a downcline. So added blood again.
And I'm talking about dogs and chickens. Rarely does any of these breeders reach inbreeding depression. They don't even understand what true inbreeding depression is. That's the lack of vigor. As far as defects, deleterious genes, genetic diseases, that has nothing to do with inbreeding depression. That's not even the same thing. That's a bloodline that's contaminated. Dogs, you can test them and see if they have those. If they don't, you're good to go. Chickens, we can breed them, do a test mating, look at the offspring, breed enough offspring, we can get a good idea what's in them. And then we know how to match them up after that, or whether they're worth breeding after that, because we can cull them. So understand that inbreeding depression, not only do you not understand it, but it's harder to reach than you think. And I don't care if it's dogs or chickens. And same thing with chickens as it is with dogs. Hearing it more and more in both, that they're really basing their families on the pedigree, which is the COR. So they're analyzing the coefficient of relationship through the pedigree, determining how often certain individuals show up in the pedigree. If I'm trying to clone an animal, if I'm trying to clone my bird, I want that bird to show up in the pedigree a lot. And then you got the COI, they're trying to reduce the amount of coefficient of inbreeding. I want that family to be as homozygous as possible. I want complete homozygosity if I can. I don't believe you're going to get to the point where it's dangerous. Like I said, no matter how pure the family are, you're still going to get variation. So I don't think the COI is that important. I want a highest COI as possible. I want a coefficient of inbreeding that is so high that I'm getting homozygous birds. I'm getting predictability, uniformity. I want them to be able to repeat themselves. If you're still getting good vigor, inbreeding is not going to hurt you one little bit. If you're getting defects, your birds or your dogs are flawed. That's the truth of it right there.
You said the main aspect of that, Kenny, in your statement when you first started. They think they're experiencing inbreeding depression.
That's right.
Think by smaller size, they automatically think they're experiencing it. Very few people, I think, has ever experienced inbreeding depression.
No.
Very few.
They've never actually seen it in real life. They only hear things. They hear people talking about a high COI. And to them, 6% COI is like huge to them. They're like, oh my God, they're too close. You need to add new blood. And I'm like, oh, you crazy. Like you said, they've never experienced true inbreeding depression.
It's hard to get there. Very hard. Even trying to get there, it's hard.
Like dogs, they'll talk about lower litter sizes. And then some will brag that they get a really high litter size. I heard a breeder, which actually made sense. And this is hybrid vigor. He said, you should be getting, depending on the breed, 8 to 10 pups. He says, that's plenty. And I agree. Now, some that are getting 12, 15, 16, 18 pups, he goes, that's not good. That's the product for hybrid vigor. And he's right. You're getting that many pups because of hybrid vigor, not because you improved the genetic composition of that particular animal. That's a hybrid animal, and it's producing, or you bred it to another animal that's not related. You got hybrid vigor, and now you're getting large puppy sizes. It's not going to last.
They get one that's got 10 puppies. They say, well, it was inbred. That's reason it's going to have more than 10.
8 to 10 pups for most dogs should be enough. The things they're looking for are only produced through hybrid vigor, but it's not sustainable. It's not repeatable. So I think they're misguided. I just laugh at people who make a big deal about analyzing the COR, the coefficient of relationship, which is fine, but I'm always on the opposite side. I want to see that particular animal showing up quite a bit in that pedigree. That's the whole idea, that I want to clone that particular animal. I want a high COI. And then they make a big deal about the COI being high, which is what I want. I want homozygosity. If I'm not dealing with any defects or deleterious genes or genetic health issues, then I want to breed those. I want to get them as close as I can. If I have those kind of issues and I got a flawed animals, I need to maybe think about getting a different animal to breed.
Well, if it was intended for dogs to have that many pups, Mother Nature wouldn't have given them just so many breasts. They'd have
Exactly.
15 to 20 breasts.
That should tell you right there, there's something wrong with that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So genetic drift is an interesting one, and it's part of evolution. It's what we use to either restore a family or start a family from another breeder. So if I get a trio from Frank, we're talking about a small sample of his whole yard. Or let's say I've got a family of animals and a disease comes through and knocks a good proportion of my population down to a handful of birds. Whatever rises from that is genetic drift. So we're dealing from a larger population drawn down to a smaller population. Now we're dealing with a limited number of genes. Depending on the family that you got them from or the family that they derive from, the purer they are, the better we're going to be able to move forward with and actually create a family from that. So if I have really good family, they're well established, a disease hits me, it's not going to be as big a deal. Yeah, I'm dealing with smaller number of genes, but I'm actually moving the family forward in a really good way because I'm not dealing with a lot of genetic diversity. And let's say I get birds from Frank and I bring them home and I've got a small sample of his birds and they're a good sample of his birds. The chances are, if I'm selecting them properly using a proper breeding program, I'm actually going to create a family. There's a good chance it's going to be better than Frank's. Yep. Because he's still dealing with the large number of birds where I'm dealing with a smaller number of birds and I can take them in a specific direction. So that's a good thing. So the idea is to get that small number of genes. Hopefully you're dealing with good birds because if you have bad birds with bad genes, you're obviously going to go in the wrong direction. So selection of your seed file at this point is imperative. But if I have good birds, I'm starting from there, I can go in such a really good direction. I'm going to create a family faster. Let's say I feel like my family isn't improving very well. They're not doing very well. They're not going in the right direction. They have a lot of issues, and I'm just not making progress. So what I would do at that point is I would look at all my birds. I would pick the best cock and the best hen. And I would say, okay, I'm not breeding anything else. I might even get rid of a lot of those. And I start from the best cock and best hen. And all of a sudden, my family just takes off because of genetic drift. I'm actually doing a smaller number of genes from the best birds, and it goes in a completely different direction, and it excels like it never did before. Using genetic drift to your benefit to either improve, preserve, or create a strain. It's incredible.
Hear what Skinny's talking about. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen yards, say a disease come in, wiped out all the birds except for 10%, maybe 5%, whatever it may be, down to a lower population. And then the time they built back with those birds, they'd have nicer birds than they had when they first started.
Yeah.
So I've actually seen this in real life.
Genetic drift can be your friend or your enemy depending on how you use it. Now, if birds, let's say I lost a bunch of my birds, or let's say I just got a couple of birds from Frank. Now, just breeding them haphazardly, not knowing really what to select, you're going to go in a bad direction. So even though you're either downsizing your birds, or you lost a bunch of birds, or you're starting with 2 new birds, I'd still work them through like the Founders Program, because that's going to make all the difference. Just because you tighten up the gene pool and you're working with lesser genes doesn't mean it's a guaranteed, because you still have that variation to deal with. So I always suggest use something like the Founders Program to create your family from there. So just understanding genetic drift and how to use it properly isn't enough. You still have to use a really good breeding program to move forward with.
Yeah, a lot of people says, well, I don't want to take the time. If it's a true family, it's a true family. I don't want to take the time and run them through another breeding program. Well, the thing about it is, if they are a true family and somebody has bred them as such, they're going to fly through it, aren't they, Kenny? They're going to go through the Founders Program so fast, you'll never even know it.
It's a lot quicker if you have an established family that doesn't have a lot of problems. Yep.
They will go through it with ease.
Yeah. So that's the last one for this group of challenges.
That was a good outline.
Yeah. So the next one we're going to do, I think it's genetics. That's going to be a fun one too.
That'd be a really good one, right? Yeah, really good.
I just want people to understand how important not only science and not only genetics, but evolutionary biology is. Understanding the mechanisms of evolution and how they work and how they relate to selective breeding and how we can use them to create, improve, and maintain our strains. That if you can understand the mechanisms, then you can better understand selective breeding, understand why we do some of the things we do. And like I said, I created the Founders Program based on evolutionary biology, the mechanisms. I'm going to fire. Shit.
Well, look at it this. What does every species in the wild have in common?
I don't know. I can't think now.
They're identical to each other.
Ask me that question again.
They all have the same conformation, and that's the way it should be with our breeding. Our birds, they should all look identical. They should have the same attributes. They should be able to reproduce themselves. Mother Nature makes sure that hers does. So with us, we can speed it up even faster. There's no excuses that we have that they should be showing that much diversity or be that much difference between them.
We're doing the same things. We call them different. We name them different. Our methods are similar to what Mother Nature does. But Frank, that's really the only difference is we do it faster.
Light years ahead.
Yeah.
What takes thousands of millions of years takes us, just a fraction of the time. Like we said a while ago, it worked from 8 to 12 years,
Yeah. I'm hoping people understand the value of learning this. We teach a lot of it in the Breeders Academy, and it changed my world. It really made the difference because genetics is basically evolutionary biology. Yeah, you have evolution, you have the mechanisms of evolution, but genetics is actually a big part of that too. So once I started digging into genetics, I don't remember exactly how somebody said something. It might have been, oh yeah, I know what it was. I did a show with Tony on, I forgot what I called it. It had a lot to do with natural selection and how we breed our fowl. And him and I did a big talk, and I actually made a podcast episode out of it. And I think that was one of the things that made me dig into evolutionary biology a little bit deeper and understand it was like a light bulb went off, how similar they are, but how beneficial they were. And I don't think I'd be where I am today, or even the Breeders' Academy, if it wasn't for that understanding.
Yeah, and the next show that we have, we may want to discuss this too. This has been a big topic on the internet, Cross Creek. I know the reason he's saying this. Straight comb to straight comb gives you pea combs, LOL. Yeah, the things some people believe, they go against genetics.
Did you get in an argument with someone about that recently?
Yeah, he was telling me that his birds actually produce pea combs from 2 straight-headed birds.
Yeah, did you get in a big argument with him about it?
He wanted to make an argument, but, we were just talking, and I guess he rode off on his horse, his unicorn. But, yeah, people refuse to embrace science. I bred chickens for many years, all my life, and something I've never gotten is a pea-headed bird from 2 straight-headed parents. I've never, ever got that. I would like to see the first one. I really would.
If that's true, everything we know about genetics is wrong.
That's what I told him.
It doesn't work.
I said, if you're right, I have wasted a lot of time and a lot of money in my education, if you're right. Everything I believe in is a lie, if that be the case.
Yeah.
So, but in theory, it could happen with a mutation, but it's not happened and it never will.
Well, yeah, but mutation wouldn't create pecomb in a straight comb family. It wouldn't know what to do. A pecomb is a very specific trait. A mutation would create other things. People put too much stock in mutations. Mutations are rare and they rarely take hold. It may show up in a bird here and there, but for it to be a big deal, you have to actually breed to it with two birds carrying the same mutation.
I have a question. What's the difference between a mutation and a defect? They're not one and the same.
Mutation's
Right.
spontaneous.
Yeah.
Defects is basically a trait. It's just not a good trait. Okay, now tell me what was so funny, because we're at the end.
Okay,
Better make it good, too.
I'm going to incriminate myself, you know? So Robbie started talking about how he's hungry and he wants pancakes. And Joseph says, and bacon. And then I say, well, you know, strawberries on top of the pancakes. So then we're going on this long stint about talking about bacon and pancakes. And you guys are talking about some serious biz here. And here we are in the chat room talking about food. And so I say, we're being terrible. We should be talking about chicken. And Joseph says, the Breeders' Academy meets Hunger Games. May the genetics be ever in your favor. Lost it. Thanks a lot, Joseph.
You know, I haven't opened it once, so I have the number here. We have 168 comments.
Now, that's small amount compared to what we normally have.
I looked
Yeah,
up,
that's a small amount.
geez, no one's even listening to us.
Oh my gosh. That's because us guys that are in the Breeders' Academy, you already know all this stuff. So we're talking about food instead. So,
Yeah, you can tell it's the members. They're like,
yeah, it was the members. Yeah.
yeah.
If you see how they talk on the groups page, I'm like a proud papa because
Oh, yeah.
I can see that they're really absorbing what we're teaching and what they're learning in the website, and
I
they're
like to watch
sharing it
that.
with each other. It's really neat. Or I see them popping up somewhere else and they're talking to people, and it's like, wow, they're really learning. This is so cool.
If I'm in a group, I know exactly. I don't even have to look at the name. I can read the comment and I know if they're a member or not. I don't have to see the name. I know they're a member just the way they're talking.
Yeah, that's so cool. So proud. So anything you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
Are we here next week?
I think so. What do you think,
What is
Frank?
next week?
Okay.
I don't know.
It's
let me-
Friday as far as I know. Easy.
I don't even know what day it is, tell you the truth. I'm so busy.
Listen to this, the earthquake of the day. So I was worried. Amanda told me about it. I automatically get the phone. I send it out to Kenny and I goes, hey, did you guys feel the tremor? And he goes, what, did we have an earthquake? Question mark. And I'm like, Jesus.
Nope.
It was a 7-pointer.
Yeah, I
now.
didn't feel
It
a
was too
thing.
far away.
I didn't feel a thing. So
Yeah, but you know, Nancy, I was telling Kenny the one we had in the 80s when I was a kid out in Los Angeles, what was it, 8 or 9? The big
Yeah,
one?
It was a bad one. Yeah.
That we felt that here in Kentucky.
No.
Yes. Sure did.
Really?
Sure did. Mom had a thing of Kool-Aid sitting on the table and we was outside. We didn't feel it. And
Yeah,
Mom,
Right.
yeah.
you know, told us to come in. We walked in and it was shaking all over the table.
I didn't feel it either. That big one in LA, I think I was on a golf tournament. So like you said, when you're outside,
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything. So all I know is that some of the players that lived in that area had to leave the tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. My competition got really small.
The one they had in Virginia, like I think 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, we was inside, and if it hadn't been for a fish aquarium, we'd never known it, you know. But the fish aquarium, the water was sitting out of it, and so I walked outside. And Amanda's brother lived across the street, and he was running up down the street, looking up in the air and looking around, trying to see what was going on.
Well, that's what I do.
We had no idea.
When we think there was an earthquake, that's the first thing I do is look at our ceiling fans and see if they moved.
Yeah.
That's what I look at too. Where we live, it's pretty stable. It's really weird. It's like you'll hear earthquakes all around us, but we don't hardly feel it. And when we do, it's like, was that earthquake? You're never sure. It's almost like you don't feel it, but you hear the windows
You
rattle.
hear it.
You hear it.
You hear it. Yeah.
They
The
never
windows
did
rattle
say,
pretty hard.
yeah, they never did say anything about the aftershock, if it ever happened or not. I never heard anything about that, but they were given tsunami warnings.
Yeah, I know.
After that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
called Kenny up, worried about him. He's like, "What? Did we have an earthquake?"
Yeah,
That
down
was a
here
good one.
in Southern California, here in San Diego area, if we get a tsunami, it's usually from something that happened across the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
But Northern California, yeah, they'll get it.
But that's common
usually
up there.
before us. Yeah,
The San Francisco area is known for earthquakes, big time.
Yeah.
It's like the more north you go in California, the worse it gets.
Yeah, well, you guys got those mountains up there too, so that helps you guys a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's
Well,
a lot.
that's what I tell Kenny all the time. We have so much granite. We're sitting on so much granite here in Ramona that I feel, and I'm not a geologist, so I could totally be wrong, but I feel the tremors, they hit those rocks and bounce off those rocks and go back the other way. So when there is a, like say in Borrego Springs, where it's basically a lot of desert area over there,
They get a lot there.
they get a lot there, and we'll feel it here, but it's nothing like, oh God, get yourself outside right now.
Yeah. Makes the glass in the windows.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
about it.
Kinda
Most of the
rattle a
time,
little bit.
I've had one standing in the living room next to the TV. Honey and I were getting ready to walk out. She was little at the time. And it was such a quick jolt and strong. And I was like, oh, shit. You know, it really caught my attention. When I was in the Navy up there in Lemoore, California, up in the San Joaquin Valley near Fresno, I was sitting in the barracks. And all of a sudden, I felt like someone was kicking my bed. I'm like, what the hell? I thought one of my friends was like kicking the edge of my bed because I was sitting on it doing something. And nobody was there. And all of a sudden, I felt another jolt, and my lockers popped open. I was like, shit. I look out the window. I could see two different barracks together, and they were like moving. I could see them moving like this. So I got up, and I started running out of the place. It was moving us so much that I was running into the walls. I couldn't help it. I was running into the walls all the way out there until I got outside. We found out that the city next to us, Kalinga, was leveled.
Mother Nature is the most powerful thing that we'll ever witness or experience.
Yep.
It's just something else.
Yeah.
The next one is bad breeders.
That's true.
Bringing it back to chickens.
That's true.
We're going to do part 3 next week. Genetics.
And
Be
then
there,
we're
be
talking
square.
we'll be talking about floods.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably be raining by then, huh?
Yeah, no mention rains.
Yeah, we're not getting any this winter.
Knock on wood.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, we're staying dry the whole winter.
It'll probably wash you guys off then.
No,
If they
no.
say you're not getting any, you'll get plenty, probably.
No, we're in a La Nina. We're not getting crap.
Well, that's what they tell
Nothing.
us. Oh, we're not going to get any rain, and then pow, the skies open up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for showing up, making Nancy laugh, ruining the show.
I appreciate you all keeping me awake here.
And thank you, Nancy, for joining us. I know you're really tired. You're working all day. I was surprised she even showed up. Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate you joining me.
No problem. Glad to have you, man.
Okay, see you
Have a
guys
good
later.
week, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye. Welcome to the after show. This is the part of the show that doesn't exist. What happens in the after show stays in the after show. If you've mentioned to your friends about the after show, which happens from time to time, no worries. Just tell them not to let out our little secret area of the show. Enjoy!
Here's what happens is when you breed two birds together that are brother and sister, you're going to expose the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're going to get good ones, you're going to get some mediocre, and you're going to get some real bad ones. That doesn't mean anything. It's doing its job. That's what you want to see. And if you're hatching as many chicks as you can manage and afford from that, then you're going to have a good selection and you can move forward with the ones we call our standouts. Listen to enough of our shows, we talk about that a lot, is you usually weed them down to the top 10%, and then from there you pick the standouts and you move forward with that. So yeah, you're going to get some of the bad recessive. Not all recessives are bad, but you're going to get some bad recessive. You're going to get some deleterious genes. You're going to get some defects. You're going to get issues that you want to make sure you weed out. The one thing I would say if you're thinking about breeding brother and sister is to make sure that the brother and sister are good representatives of their breed. That's important, because if they have faults, you're going to perpetuate the faults. So they got to be as good as they can be. Otherwise, I wouldn't breed them. You don't want to inbreed everything. You want to inbreed the good ones.
Yeah, I think that's something that we forget, is that while we're picking out all the good traits that we want to pass down, that we also have to look at their faults, because those are going to go too. We tend to look at the positive and not always think about the negatives.
Well, the thing is even from the best birds, you're always breeding to the standouts. And no matter how good they are, they're going to show some variation. And you just got to understand which are good and which are bad, what you want to exaggerate and what you want to cull out.
Is clan mating and spiral mating the same thing?
Yeah, it is the same thing, just two names for the same breeding program. That's an interesting one, which I think is ingenious if used properly. A lot of people want to use it for the wrong reasons. They want to use it to create a strain or to improve a strain. I think it's a great maintenance program, because what you're basically doing is you have at least 3 clans. You can have more, but you have to have at least 3 clans. And what you're doing is you have the hens from each clan, which stay in those clans, and then all the offspring from them stay in those clans as well. And you're moving your best roosters over one clan each generation. It's a great way to maintain genetic diversity, but only in a family that's well established and don't have any issues, and they're uniform, consistent, they have repeatability, predictability, and you're not getting any surprises. If you're doing it to create a strain, it's the worst thing you can do, because you just never get there. It's all about the numbers with clan mating. So let's say you want 12 hens per clan. You have your main roosters you're moving from clan to clan. The only way you're improving them is by culling, because you have to keep the numbers. So you're keeping your best 10 or 12 hens per clan, and then you're culling out the worst ones. But you don't make the progress you think you're going to make from that. It's not very fast. So I always tell people, if you're going to do a clan mating system, that's fine with an established family, but you want to keep another line on the side for your improvement program, and then you move your best birds from your improvement program into the clan mating system, and that'll help improve that. So clan mating system has its place. It is ingenious for what it does, but it's terrible for creating a strain or improving a strain. It's a great maintenance program.
I could see that, because you're keeping all the hens, but you're really only keeping one male from each pen.
And that male's being rotated from pen to pen each year. And you definitely don't want to do it with a mixed flock, think you're going to create a strain. You want to have a family. You want to establish family. We tell people in the Breeders' Academy, when you're using the Founders Program, that once you get to stage 6, you can also keep the clan mating family on the side, where you can keep a lot of extra birds. You have your best birds for your improvement program, use the clan mating as a maintenance program, and then all your production comes from that program, not the improvement program. If you are enjoying the show and would like to learn more, I encourage you to join me at the Breeders' Academy. By becoming a member, I can help you to achieve the competitive advantage.